Have a seat, today's tea is bitter, but still sweeter than the price the villain in this story is about to pay. May's red ledger has just turned to a new page. Are you ready to claim justice with Reddit Revenge Tales? Which breaks a marriage faster, the lie you tell, or the truth you finally say? Out loud, I cheated on my husband with a coworker. 2 years ago, we were scraping by, just keeping the lights on. Then came the great opportunity, and what started as harmless help turned into late-night words. My husband looked at me and said, "Choose." I froze. Now every morning hurts. Every silence is a verdict, and I'm done pretending time will fix what work should. If respect isn't optional, then I have 2 paths: stay and do the work, or leave with dignity. Leave. I'm Emily, early 30s, living in a small suburban rental with my husband, Mark. We've been married 5 years. No kids. By day, I'm an operations coordinator. Last year, I joined a new team with better pay, and for a minute I could breathe. Mark's story moved the other way. His company laid him off, and 6 months have stretched into a kind of bruise neither of us wanted to touch. We used to be on the same team, trading jokes over takeout and arguing about what to watch. Lately it feels like 2 careers on 2 different screens. I come home with small wins. He counts losses no one can see. The gap sits between us at dinner. If I mention work, he stiffens. If I don't, he says I'm hiding things. Pride hurts in quiet ways. He has started snapping at little things, policing my tone, telling me what a wife should and shouldn't do. I keep the peace, swallow the comebacks, tell myself this is temporary. But endurance has a cost, and it shows up in how softly you set down a glass, how carefully you choose every word, and how often you decide silence is safer than truth. We carried that tension out of the house and into the park. Sunday, just after sunset, it was the 2 of us on the loop path by the lake sneakers, on gravel sprinklers ticking in the grass. I tried small talk work calendars, a coworker's birthday cake. Then I said we could call the utility company in the morning and set up a plan. He stopped at a lamppost and looked at me like I'd pulled rank. He said a husband provides, and a wife doesn't preach budgets. I said I was trying to keep us steady. He said my better pay team had gone to my head. A jogger passed. I lowered my voice. He raised his. He listed tiny faults, from the week late dinner, a missed text, to the tone I used, and called it disrespect. I felt my chest climb. I kept walking to the bench near the dock. He followed close, hot with words, and when I asked for a quieter voice, he flicked my water bottle to the ground and said I should be grateful he's still here. The bottle rolled clacking against the bench. I picked it up, hands shaking, and said I'd handle the calls. He said I should have done it already, and we finished the loop without speaking. We were cleaning up after a late dinner. Sunday, 10 o'clock, just us in the kitchen. I stood at the sink, rinsing plates. The faucet ticked a slow drip. Mark leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, watching my hands. I said, I'll pack the leftovers and make a plan for the week. He said a wife should have dinner ready on time. I kept my voice even. We ate. I'm cleaning now. He stepped to the drawer, yanked it. The spoons jumped. Don't use that tone, he said. I wiped the counter, set the lid on a container. I'm trying to keep us steady, I said. He held the doorway when I moved past with the trash bag, made me pause, then shifted an inch. Stop talking back in my house, he said. I set the bag down, palms open. Let's pick meals tomorrow, I offered. You're not running a meeting here. He snapped, pointing at the fridge. The microwave beeped. I flinched. I'm tired, I said. Me too, he answered, voice edged. I stacked the clean plates and stared at my reflection in the dark window. Small, careful. The kitchen felt tight, like the walls had moved in. I went to bed thinking work was the only place that still behaved. By Monday, the air at the office felt cooler. In the operations wing, mid-morning, I sat with my headset on my planner, open coffee gone lukewarm beside me. Aaron, my manager, stopped by my desk and asked if I had a minute. We stepped into a small conference room with a glass wall and a flickering light. He said there was an opening on his team, better pay more responsibility, the kind of path that could actually go somewhere. I felt the floor steady under me. I asked about our support expectations. He said I was the person who quietly made messes disappear, and he wanted that on his team. I told him I needed to think. He nodded, handed me a simple one-page sheet, and said he'd respect my pace. Back at my desk, I stared at the numbers on the page and pictured the stack of bills at home. I also pictured the way Mark's voice lifted last night when I tried to help. I said yes that afternoon. I told myself it was for us. I told myself new money might soothe old pride. I did not speak the word boundaries out loud. I told myself I could keep the line straight. The steadiness from saying yes at work didn't follow me home. Another evening, the living room held just me and Mark, the TV low, and a stack of unopened mail on the coffee table. I scrolled one last time through my inbox, told myself to let it rest. My phone lit up with a message from Aaron asking if I could double-check a file before morning. I read it twice and felt my shoulders unclench at the simple, solvable thing in front of me. Mark glanced over and asked who kept needing me after hours. I said it was just a quick fix. He said a real wife knows when to log off. I tasted the comeback and swallowed it. I wrote back that I would look and opened my laptop on the arm of the couch. The keys sounded too loud in the quiet. I walked him through a path, sent a clean screenshot, and closed the lid. Mark said I was married to my headset now. I said nothing. In the dark TV glass, I could see our shapes seated inches apart, miles away. I told myself it was only help only tonight, and that keeping the peace was cheaper than telling the truth. It didn't stay small. Later that week near 10, we stood by the front door, just us, the hall light, throwing a tired circle on the rug. Mark shoved his feet into worn sneakers and said, "I'm out grinding while you play office hero." I said, "You're picking up a shift. Thank you," he snorted. "Don't pat me on the head." I reached for his sleeve. He zipped his jacket hard and stepped closer. "Since your big job, you think you run this house." I kept my chin level. "I'm trying to keep us steady." He jabbed a finger at my face, not touching close enough to feel the heat. "Don't use that tone." I said, "What tone?" He laughed without smiling. "The one that says you're better." He kicked the doorstop so it clattered, then pointed at the coffee table. "Shut that, laptop, at 10. I don't want to see you married to a screen." I said, "It's work. It pays our bills." He said, "My house, my rules," and with the back of his hand he knocked my book to the floor. The thud rang in the hallway. I picked it up hands steady, because someone needed to be. "Drive safe," I said. He opened the door. Tossed try not to boss anyone while I'm gone, and let the night swallow the rest. I stood in the doorway until the quiet felt like pressure on my ribs. His shot about my office hero still burned when the house finally went quiet. Another night, close to 10. I stood alone in the kitchen, the light over the sink throwing a pale square on the counter. My phone rang. Aaron. I almost let it die. I answered. He thanked me for saving a rollout, said he relied on me more than he should. Then his voice softened in a way that was not about work. He said he had feelings he couldn't file away. He said he knew it was wrong. He said he was married. His wife worked nights. The kids were down, the house was still. I pressed my palm to the cool counter. I told him I wasn't free either. He asked if I felt anything at all. I should have said no. I said I was confused. He said he could meet me where I was, just talk, no pressure. The hallway clock clicked once. I could hear my pulse in that tiny room. I told him I needed air. He asked if I wanted coffee, somewhere quiet 10 minutes. I heard myself say maybe. He breathed like he'd climbed stairs. When we hung up, the counter had a wet ring from my glass. I wiped it clean and stared at my phone until it lit again. My hand still remembered the cold edge of that counter. Later that week, behind a 24-hour diner, I parked under a buzzing light windows, cracked heat ticking. 10 at night, just me and Aaron in separate cars, facing each other across 2 empty spaces. He got out first, hands visible, careful. I stepped out and pulled my jacket close. We didn't go inside. We stood between our cars where no one could float a greeting. He said he was sorry for calling at night. I said I was sorry for answering. He smiled, not proud, not shy, something in between, and asked how I took my coffee. I said black. He came back with 2 cups and a handful of creamers I didn't use. We talked about work like it was neutral ground, then about sleep, then about how quiet houses get when people stop trying. He said I deserved to be seen. I said that word scared me. He reached for nothing, just shifted closer. I felt the heat off his coat and stepped back half an inch, then didn't move again. He asked if we could meet for 10 minutes another night. Same place, no expectations. I nodded once. The neon buzzed, steady as a dare. I drove home with my coffee untouched, and my heart too loud. The neon from that diner still buzzed in my head when I said yes to another 10 minutes. Another night by the lake lot, just me and Aaron standing a step apart under a lamppost. The water made a slow shush against the rocks. He handed me a coffee and asked how my day really went, not the office version. I said it was fine, and then told the truth, it was heavy. He said I carried more than my share. We walked the path to the first bench. Our sleeves brushed. I didn't move. He asked if I wanted to sit. I nodded, careful. We kept our voices low, the kind you use when you do not want a story to spread. He told me he felt seen when I explained things in plain words. I told him that word scared me, but I liked how quiet his listening was. He did not reach for me. He set his hand on the bench, palm open, and left it there. I set mine near his, not touching close enough to feel the warmth. When the park lights blinked, I said I should go. He said he would be here if I needed 10 minutes again. I drove home with the window cracked and the coffee untouched. That open space between our hands followed me home. A late night, the house dark except for the hall light. I came in dressed too neatly for a simple errand makeup still holding. Mark stood in the doorway to the living room. He didn't speak at first. He stepped in close and breathed in. His eyes changed. "Who were you with?" he asked, voice low. I said I went for air. He blocked the hallway with his shoulder and said to stop treating him like a fool. I tried to move past. He caught my wrist for a second, then let go. "Answer me," he said. I said I talked to someone from work. He laughed, nothing kind in it, and asked why I smelled like a man who wasn't him. My mouth went dry. He pointed to my face. "You dressed up to talk." I said I needed to feel steady for 10 minutes. He raised his voice, names I don't repeat, and the room went small. I said, "Please lower your voice." He didn't. "Choose," he said, clear and cold. For real. The word hung between us like a held door. I felt every lie I had told myself line up behind me. I said nothing, and the silence did the choosing. Choose was still hanging in the air when he reached for my phone. Same night living room. Just us, the hall light. throwing a thin stripe across the rug. He said, "If it's work, prove it," and scrolled through recent calls. I said, "Please don't." He hit dial and put it on speaker, holding the phone between us like a badge. Aaron answered groggy. Mark stepped in shoulder set and said, "This is Emily's husband. Do you call married women at night?" Silence then. Aaron said he was sorry that it was about a file. Mark's jaw clicked. "Does Megan know who you are to my wife?" he asked, voice low and sharp. I said, "Stop. You're scaring me." He didn't look at me. He asked Aaron again. Aaron said he was married, yes, and he was crossing lines he shouldn't. Mark laughed harsh. He moved closer until I had to back into the arm of the couch. "You don't call her again," he said into the phone. "You don't text. You stay away." He ended the call with his thumb and dropped my phone on the cushion hard enough to bounce. "You want to pick a team," he said. "Pick it out loud." I tried to speak and found only air. He turned and waited for a fight I couldn't give, and the room felt like it had run out of exits. The dead line from that call kept buzzing in my head as we moved to the kitchen. Same night, just past midnight, 2 people at a counter meant for breakfast and quiet mornings. He stood by the fridge, arms wide like a door I couldn't pass. "You humiliated me," he said. "You dress up and disappear and expect me to clap." I said, "I'm trying to breathe in this house." He lifted his voice. "You don't get to act like a boss here." I asked him to lower it. He slapped his palm flat on the counter. The spice jar rattled. "You want respect? Earn it," he said, and he started listing small things like charges, a late dinner, a short text, a tired tone. Names followed the kind that strip a person down. I said, "Stop calling me that." He pushed a chair with his knee. It scraped hard. I stepped back to the sink and kept my hands visible. "I made a mistake," I said. "But I'm not your punching bag." He pointed at my face. "You don't get to write the rules." I felt my throat burn and finally met his eyes. "Then I'll write mine," I said, slow and clear. "You will not speak to me like that again." The words felt heavier than my body, and for a second, even the fridge went quiet. "Then I'll write mine" was still in the room when I said we couldn't carry this alone. Same night, kitchen lights low, just us at the table, the ice maker thunking once in the dark. I picked up my phone and said, "I'm calling my mom." Mark stared, then sat hard and folded his arms. I put it on the speaker and told her I had crossed a line with someone from work, and our house was coming apart. She was quiet long enough for me to hear her breathe. "Tell the truth, and then decide if you're staying to do the work or leaving with dignity," she said. My throat burned. I said I was scared of both. She said fear wasn't a plan. I ended the call and slid the phone across the table. Mark took his turn. He called his mother, pace-tight voice flat, told her I had betrayed him, and he didn't know what to do with the anger in his hands. She said to step away before he said something he couldn't take back. He hung up and stared at the floor. "I won't forget," he said. "I know," I answered. The ice maker clicked again. He said we would try. He did not say forgive. The word try felt like a thin rope over water. That rope held through the next day. In the evening living room, lamps on low, it was just me and Mark on opposite ends of the couch, a folded blanket between us like a line we shouldn't cross. He said we'd try his word, and that meant I would sleep light and answer questions, and not roll my eyes or raise my voice. I said I would not accept name-calling again. He said I shouldn't give him reasons. I took a breath and let that one pass. I brought him a plate. He pushed it back with 2 fingers without looking at it. I'm not hungry, he said. I said we needed a plan for talking that didn't turn into war. I'm not in therapy, he snapped. I'm not broken. You broke us. He stood up, then sat again like the couch caught him. Maybe I should file. He said, eyes on the TV that wasn't on. The room went thin. I want our life. I said, steady, but I won't live in a house where I'm stripped down by names. He watched me like I'd spoken a foreign language. We'll see, he said. He took the blanket and walked down the hall, leaving the lamp on and the taste of metal in my mouth. The taste of metal from We'll See lingered into another evening. In our kitchen after dinner, just us, the air vent rattled like loose change in a dryer while I cleared plates. Mark watched as if I was hiding something under each one. He asked who had texted today. I said a coworker about schedules. He held out his hand. I set my phone on the counter instead. He stepped in, took it anyway, scrolled and read a harmless line like a charge sheet. You like being needed, don't you? He said. I kept my voice steady. I like being useful. He looked at my blouse and told me to change before bed, because it was too much for a married woman. I said it was a shirt. He said I sounded proud. I said I was tired. He stood in the hallway a heartbeat, not blocking, just making me wait, then shifted enough for me to pass. In the bedroom I changed into an old t-shirt and folded the blouse across a chair. He came in, turned off the lamp I had just turned on, and said lights out meant phones down. My house, he added, soft, but not gentle. I lay still counting the blades of the fan, and wondered when keeping peace started to cost me myself. That tightness rode with me into the next day. By evening, living room quiet, 2 spots of light from the lamps. I told Mark I wanted help from a professional. I said we needed someone neutral, so we would stop tearing each other open. He stared at the dark TV and said therapy was for people who cannot control themselves. I said I wanted us to learn how to talk without burning the room down. He asked if my better pay team told me to fix him too. I shook my head. I'm asking you to come with me, I said. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, and said, if I needed a stranger to teach me respect, then I could go alone. I picked up my phone and started to look for a number. He reached over, pressed the screen dark with 2 fingers, and let it fall to the cushion. You keep making problems, and then you call it work, he said. I lifted the phone again and said I would make an appointment for myself. He laughed without humor and said not to waste our money. I said I would pay for it out of my own check. The laugh stopped. He looked at me a long time and said, do what you want. I saved the number anyway, and the room felt both dangerous and finally honest. That do what you want rattled around my head until it sounded like permission to try anything. Later that week, I booked a cheap room by the highway. 2 nights, nothing fancy pool. Closed ice machine louder than the AC. Saturday evening, just me and Mark in a small motel room. Curtains that didn't quite meet. I suggested tacos from the stand across the street. He said fine without looking up. We ate at the little table paper napkins sticking to our fingers. I tried soft stories from before the layoff, our first road trip, the time we got lost and laughed anyway. He nodded at the right moments, then asked who at work still needed me at night. I said no one. He stared at the TV's blue screen and said he didn't believe me. We drove to the beach for a minute of wind and came right back, both of us tugging at a thread that wouldn't loosen. On the drive home Sunday, the car felt crowded with what we weren't saying. At our front door keys in his hand, he set them down and looked past me into the living room. This house doesn't feel like home, he said, plain as weather. I stood there with the bag in my hand and understood. Endurance wasn't fixing anything. His words stayed in the doorway even after we walked past them. Another night late, the kitchen was mine again. Just me, the clock hand jumping every few seconds, and distant traffic sliding past the windows. I opened my laptop and pulled up the thread with Aaron. My fingers hovered over the keys. I typed one sentence, then deleted the word sorry 3 times until my hands stopped shaking. I kept it simple work hours. Work matters, nothing else. I saved it and closed my eyes. Something unclenched in my face. I turned my phone face down and opened the HR portal in a new tab. I filled the form, saved it as a draft, stared at send, then closed the tab. Not yet. I scrolled my messages and cleared the late-night texts I had read too many times. The room felt bigger and lonelier in the same breath. I rinsed a glass, set it in the rack, and stood there in the soft kitchen light. I wasn't fixed. We weren't fixed. But I had set one line where there hadn't been one, and I knew the next move wouldn't be small. That thought that the next move wouldn't be small sat beside me at the kitchen table. Late evening. Just me. The clock tapping the house finally quiet enough to hear my own decision. I opened a new email, addressed it to Aaron and typed what I should have said. Months ago. Work hours for work matters. No personal contact. After hours, no more late-night calls. I read it out loud once to hear how it landed. I added a simple line that I would keep communication on official channels. Then I put HR in the CC, my finger hovering until the tremor in my hand settled. I hit send. The sound in my chest changed. I opened my messages and removed his number from favorites. I set my phone face down and let the silence stretch without filling it. A minute later, my screen lit with a short reply understood. I didn't answer. I closed the laptop and sat with the unfamiliar feeling of doing the hard right thing without asking permission. The faucet ticked once and went still. I rinsed my glass, turned off the light, and told myself a boundary is only real if I hold it when someone pushes back. That new calm followed me into the next night. In the kitchen after dinner, just us, the heater clicked on, and 2 mugs cooled on the counter. I'm staying if we both do the work, I said. No name-calling, no blocking the hallway, no shouting. If we're heated, we pause and come back. He stared at the sink. You don't give orders here? He said. I didn't blink. I won't live where contempt is furniture. If we can't be kind, we can't be married. He stepped close enough that I could feel his breath. Is this an ultimatum? It's clarity, I said. I want us. I want help. I'll schedule a couple slot if you'll come. If you won't, I'll plan to part clean. The dishwasher clicked into a new cycle. He looked at the floor, then at me, and said he needed time. You've got until the end of the month, I said, not unkind. The room waited for his answer. The mugs from last night were still on the counter when he came in. Same kitchen after dinner, just us. A neighbor's door thudded somewhere down the hall. I repeated myself calm. Kind, or we're done. He smirked. You think a raise turns you into management. I'm naming what I can live with, I said. He stepped close until the counter pressed my hip. Here are my terms, he said, setting a palm over my cup like he owned the heat. I lifted my phone and opened the email to Aaron with HR on the line. This is closed, I said. He glanced jaw tight. You should have done that before you embarrassed me. You don't get to keep punishing me. He tapped the switch off and on. No drama, just a flick of control. My house, he said. I set the phone down. Then choose the kind of house you want. He stared at the grout like it hid an answer. I'm not going to therapy, he said. Not today. End of the month, I said, steady. The silence stood between us like a wall we hadn't decided to climb. That stillness followed us into the living room the next evening. Lamp's low TV off, just the two of us at opposite ends of the couch, the folded blanket between us like a neutral zone. I said I wanted a way to argue without breaking the furniture in our heads. We talk for 20 minutes, then we cool off. No shouting, no names. He stared at the blank screen. "You love rules," he said. I kept my eyes on him, not the TV. "I love us more." He rubbed his face and said he could try the timer, but I shouldn't expect miracles. "I'm not promising anything," he added. I nodded. One dinner together a week. Phones down. We eat, and we do not interrogate. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it for months. "Fine," he said. He picked up his phone, thumbed the clock, and set a 20-minute alarm. The chime tested the air and went quiet. 2 weeks, he said. Then we see. I reached for the blanket and unfolded half an offering, not a flag. He didn't take it, but he didn't stand up either. "Sunday night we check in," I said. He hit save on the reminder and leaned back like the couch might hold him for once. The quiet didn't feel friendly, but it wasn't war. And that was a start. The truce from those trial terms didn't hold long. Another night living room lamps on low, it was just us, and the soft tick from his phone timer on the coffee table. We started fine. I said work had been heavy. He said he'd chased 3 leads and none panned out. The air thinned fast. He asked who I text at lunch. I said coworkers. He smiled without warmth and dropped a word that cuts a woman down to size. I watched it land between us like broken glass. "No," I said steady. "You don't call me that." He leaned forward, elbows on knees, and said if I didn't want heat, I shouldn't act superior. My chest rose. I kept my voice level. "I made the mess," I said, "but I won't be defined by my worst mistake." His jaw worked. The timer chimed a clean, harmless sound, and he slapped it silent with the flat of his hand. The couch creaked under his weight. He stared at the wall, like it had answers. "You always want the last word," he said. "I want respect." I answered calm as I could make it, "or I'll build a life where I can breathe." The room held its breath with us, waiting to see if we could keep this from catching fire. That breathless quiet carried into the kitchen the next evening. Same house after dinner. Just us at the counter. The ice maker thunked once in the freezer. 2 clean plates drying by the sink. The deadline stands. I said not unkind. Therapy together. Or we separate clean. He let out a short laugh. "You love giving orders." I folded the dish towel slow. "I'm naming reality." He stepped close, planted a palm on the counter near my hip. "You're not walking out over a calendar," he said. I met his eyes. If kindness can't live here, this marriage can't either. He pushed off the counter and went to the hall, grabbed his keys, then came back long enough to point at the door, like it had taken sides. "You think deadlines make you brave." "They make me clear," I answered. He brushed past my shoulder. I caught myself on the fridge. The front door opened with a hollow sound. "Try not to boss anyone while I'm gone," he said, and the frame caught. The engine snapped the quiet. I stood with my palm on the cold steel and felt something lock into place. If he wouldn't choose the work, I would choose the life. The engine from last night still lived in my chest. The next evening the house was quiet enough to hear ice settle in a glass. I sat at the edge of our bed with the door half closed and called a therapist I had saved under a plain name. It rang twice. A calm voice picked up. I said my marriage was on fire, and I needed a place to speak without being cut down. She asked if I could come this week. I said yes, and read the day back to her so I would not back out. When we hung up, I put the phone on the dresser and went for a slow walk around the block. Streetlights hummed. Windows glowed the way they do when families are okay. I came home, washed my face, and ate toast standing at the sink, because real food felt like a lot. Mark texted that he would be late, and not to wait up. I typed back "drive safe" and set the phone face down. In the mirror over the stove, I looked like someone trying not to shake. I poured water, turned off lights, and lay on my side of the bed. I did not pray for perfect. I asked for enough spine to hold the line I had finally drawn. That line felt real in the morning. Later that week, early evening, I was in the kitchen alone, rinsing grapes, and listening to the soft tick of the thermostat. Keys hit the dish by the door. Mark came in slower than usual, and stood by the counter, not touching anything. He looked at my face like he was trying to find an old map. "Did you make that appointment?" he asked. My throat went tight, and I said yes. He nodded once. He pulled out his phone, typed, and turned the screen for me to see. A single line sat there, simple and bare. "Therapy Tuesday at 6. I'll come." He did not hand me the phone like a victory. He set it on the counter and kept his eyes on the sink. "I'm not promising forgiveness," he said, voice low. "I'm not asking for a promise," I said. "I'm asking for 1 hour where we don't destroy each other." He picked up a grape and split it with his thumb like he needed something to do. "Fine," he said. 1 hour. The clock on the stove rolled forward. I rinsed the bowl and felt the room change by a degree, not warm yet, but not ice. And I could finally take a full breath. Tuesday at 6, I sat beside Mark in a small office, with soft chairs and a white noise machine that sounded like distant rain. It was just the two of us, and the therapist across from us. Hands folded, voice even. She asked us to speak plainly. I went first. I said I cheated. I hurt us. And I am not making excuses, I am making amends. Mark stared at the carpet and said he felt humiliated, angry and tired of being handled like a problem. The therapist nodded and set 2 glasses of water on the low table. Mark kept his hands on his knees, knuckles pale. I kept my ring finger still so it would not rattle the glass. We named 1 rule each. I asked for no name-calling and no shouting. He asked for no lies and no midnight mysteries. The therapist said to try honesty without weapons. She asked us to turn toward each other and hold 10 seconds of eye contact. My throat burned. He did not blink. She asked for 1 request, stated as a hope. I said, "Speak to me like I am human." He said, "Tell me before I have to ask." The timer on her desk gave a soft tone, and the hour felt both too long and not nearly enough. The hour followed us home. The next 2 weeks the house felt like a classroom, where we were the only students. By Sunday, we sat at the kitchen table and tried to check in without setting off alarms. One night, he caught himself mid-insult and shut his mouth so hard his jaw clicked. I put my fork down and said thank you for stopping. He looked confused, then nodded like the word landed. Another night, I answered a hard question, without flinching. I said where I had been, who I had spoken to, and why I had not said it sooner. He listened with his hands open, not fists. We ate 1 dinner with our phones face down. The silence felt less like a verdict, and more like a room we could paint later. There was a slip. His voice rose sharp and he stepped back before it crested. He said he needed a walk and took one. I let him go and did not chase him down the street with explanations. I kept my individual session and came home to a quieter couch. The end of the month edged closer. He stared at the calendar on the fridge like it was a cliff and asked if I still meant the words. I said I did, and the room waited for our feet to choose a side. The calendar on the fridge waited like a witness. That night, just us at the table. Air through the vent lifted and fell, while my heart finally slowed. I told Mark I meant every word I would stay if we both did the work. I would leave if kindness never showed up. He looked at his hands and said he didn't know how to forgive, yet only how to try without hurting me. I said trying without hurting is where we start. We sat there a long minute, not enemies, not fixed, just two people choosing what happens next. If you're listening for a map, here's what I learned the hard way. One gratitude isn't a leash. You can thank someone and still say no. Two boundaries said out loud are mercy, not punishment. 3 reconciliation takes 2. One person cannot drag a marriage uphill. 4. Respect is the floor, not a prize. 5. The truth costs less than the lies you carry. I'm not erasing the past. I'm making amends and keeping my lines steady. If love asks us to rebuild, we'll do it brick by brick. If it asks us to part, we'll part clean. All right. Let May be painfully clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern. And it showed up fast. A stranger asked you something stupid at a bar, you said no, and Mark turned you from wife to suspect. That's red flag number 1, suspicion, without proof. Then he started the classic toxic combo, moving the goalpost, demanding the truth after you already gave it, and treating your calm as evidence. That's not concern. That's control wearing a suit. And when someone blocks the exit, when your I need air becomes why are you running, that's not love. That's a power test. The moment he rewrote the story, you pushed me, you escalated. That's gaslighting 1. Oh, 1. Not loud, not messy, just cold. Tidy cruelty. So here's your takeaway straight up. Your no is a full sentence. You don't audition for basic respect. You don't negotiate reality with someone who benefits from you doubting yourself. If you're hearing this and your stomach drops, trust that. Red flags don't get greener with time. To the villain of this story, karma doesn't need your permission. It just keeps receipts. And to you, sweetheart, this debt May clears it. But remember, these eyes are always watching. Don't let your name end up on May's blacklist next episode. Hit subscribe, because around here, justice doesn't show up late. It shows up ready. A final note from the library. While these stories find their roots in the halls of Reddit, they are artistically reimagined to speak to the heart. Any likeness to reality is mere coincidence. The emotions, however, are very real. Walk with empathy and let justice lead the way. Thank you for watching.